Hi, this is Professor Salazar, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can install an FTP server on an Ubuntu machine. You can use an FTP server to upload and download files between two computers. Okay, so in this example, I'll be using my Ubuntu machine to install an FTP server, and I'll also be using my Windows machine in order to access that FTP server. And I'll show you how once you gain access to it, you can upload your own files or download files to and from that FTP server as well. All right, so first things first, I'm going to get started by sharing my screen. All right, I'm going to open my Ubuntu machine by typing Ubuntu. All right. And I'm also going to start by doing updates to it. So I'm going to I'm first going to make this, see if I can make it larger. Okay. Let's try this again. I'm going to type in sudo apt update. Okay. And then I see that there's 132 packages that need to be upgraded. So I'm going to type in sudo apt upgrade space -y. And 132 packages usually takes a little bit of time to download and install. So I'll just wait patiently here. While that's happening, I'm also going to be using the Windows PowerShell. So I'm going to open up Windows PowerShell. And I'll place these two items side by side in a little bit. But what I want to show you is having them side by side. I'm actually going to be able to show you on the left side will be my Ubuntu machine. On my right side is going to be my Windows machine. And when I set up the FTP server, everything's going to be running on my Ubuntu machine. On my Windows machine, I'll be able to access it on the right-hand side. All right. Okay, so updates are done. And the next step for me to do would be to install the FTP service. And in order to do this, I'm going to type in sudo apt install vsftpd. And vsftpd stands for Very Secure FTP Daemon. Okay, so it's just the name of an FTP server that you can install. I'm going to type Y to continue. And there it is. Okay, so the next step is to go into the configuration file of vsftpd and make some changes to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up that configuration file using the nano text editor. I'm going to type in sudo nano space /etc /vsftpd .conf. Okay, so the configuration file opens, and I'm looking for something called anonymous enabled equals no. And if you change this to anonymous enabled equals yes, you can essentially allow anybody to gain access to your FTP server. You normally would not do this if you don't want an anonymous login to be able to access your FTP server. But just for the purposes of this lab and just to show you how you can do it, you can allow anonymous logins by typing in yes instead of no here. Also, you can make changes to the default directory that's opened whenever somebody connects to your FTP server. By default, there's a location called /srv/ftp, but you can always make changes to that by adding other folders or adding some subfolders within that location, and then giving people access to it. All right. I'm not going to go that far, but what I will do is make changes to anonymous enabled equals yes. I'm going to go here and uncomment this this setting that says write enabled equals yes. So when I uncommented it, all I did was remove the pound hashtag symbol right next to it. If I put up another hashtag symbol next to it, it comments it out, so it doesn't actually work, or it disables it right there. But if I want to enable that feature, all I have to do is uncomment it, meaning I have to take off that hashtag symbol under write enabled yes. And again, write enabled, if you want your users to be able to upload files to an FTP server, then they need to have that write enabled feature. All right. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down right here where it says a non-upload enable equals yes. And if I comment that out, it's going to enable the ability for a user, which is anonymous, to also upload files to an FTP server. Now, in doing so, what I'll be doing over here on my Windows machine is I'm going to be logging in using the anonymous account. I'm going to be able to upload my own files to the FTP server, but I will also need to give the folder write access if I'm going to be uploading my own files to it. So I'll be doing that as well. After I'm done making those changes, I'll just do Control X, Y, and Enter to save that configuration file. And I'm also going to be restarting the FTPD service. So I'm going to type in sudo systemctl restart vsftpd.service. And it doesn't take long just to restart the service, but that's how you would start it or restart it. Now, you can go a step further and secure FTP. You can make changes to configuration file where you're not allowing anonymous logins, or you're setting up your own usernames and passwords to it, or you can even enable SSL certificates to make the connections. You can do a lot of secure things, but just for the purposes of this lab, I'm just going to show you how you can set it up and share files and folders. Later on, I can also show you how if there's a server that's insecure, like this FTP server, you can use Kali Linux to try to hack your way into it as well. So that'll be towards the end of the video that I have set up for you today. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to show you the location of where files and folders can be placed in order to have users upload or download to an FTP server. And the location in my file system is called /srv/ftp. Okay. If I have that folder, I know that I have my FTP server up and running and that users can upload and download to and from that server. Now, what I can also do is within my FTP folder, I can create another folder and give anonymous access to it. And you normally would not do this because it kind of opens up the ability for just anyone to be able to upload or download access to this FTP server. But this is what you would do. You would type in sudo mkdir, and I'm going to create a folder called uploads. And if I do ls, I see an uploads folder within my FTP folder. If I do ls space -l, it also gives me a long listing format of the uploads folder, and it also shows me the permissions of that folder. So you'll notice that I have read-write access for the owner. It starts with a D because this is a directory, but it also has read-write access for the owner. It has read and execute access for the group, and it has read and execute access for anybody else. Now, since my anonymous user is not the owner and is not part of the root group, then I would also have to give them write access. And anyone that's part of the root group also does not have write access. So if I want to give everybody access to everything on this uploads folder, then I would type in sudo chmod 777 on this folder called uploads. And once I do that, if I do ls space -l again, I see that everyone has read, write, and execute access. Or should I say read, write, and execute permission to this uploads folder. All right. So this is what you do if you want to try to connect to an FTP server. And from this point on, I'm just going to put them side by side so you can see both the Ubuntu machine on the left and the Windows machine on the right. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to try to connect to this FTP server. And before I do that, I want to know its IP address. So I'm going to type in ifconfig. And it says ifconfig is not installed. So I have to type in a command called sudo apt install net-tools in order to install ifconfig. Now I can do ifconfig to check my IP address. And my IP address is 172.21.219.132. So a good rule of, a good practice here is if you just checked your IP address and you really want to know if that IP address is available, you can always try to ping it. For my Windows machine, I'm going to type in ping 172.21.219.132. If I see that I'm getting replies just like this, then I know that that FTP server is up and running. And specifically not FTP, but I know that my Ubuntu machine is up and running. So the next step would be to try to connect through the FTP service, right? And what I'm going to do next is type in FTP. And now it's waiting for me to type in the command of an FTP server. So I'm going to type in open 172.21.219.132. And let's see if I can connect to it. And I'm able to connect to it. Now, if you're not able to connect to it, chances are that it's a firewall issue and you have to check your firewall. So what I can also do is I could type in UFW status, and it says need to be root. So I'm going to type in sudo UFW status, and it says it's inactive. If you want to activate this thing, you can type in sudo UFW enable. Firewall is active. Sudo UFW status is going to show you if it's active or not. And if you want to allow FTP, then you can start adding some basic rules to it. Like for example, FTP uses port 20 and 21. So I would have to have those two ports open if I want to connect. So I'm going to type in sudo UFW allow 20. The rule's been added. And I'm also going to add 21. So I'm going to type in sudo UFW allow 21. And if I do sudo UFW status, I see that both 20 and 21 have been added from anywhere. So this just basically means that there's a rule that's allowing me to connect from anywhere out there on the network to my FTP server. And here it's asking me to log in with a username. I'm going to type in the username called anonymous. And I'm not going to type in a password, so I'm just going to hit enter. And now it says login successful. You see how I didn't actually need a password here because when I was setting up my Ubuntu machine, I didn't specify that I needed a username and password. This is not considered to be secure. Anytime that you use an FTP server and you don't have to log in with a password, it's not considered secure. And I will say this, and FTP's protocols, which are using 20 and 21, are also not considered secure. Those two port numbers are not secure. A better way of connecting through FTP is by using FTPS or SFTP. FTPS stands for FTP with an SSL certificate or /TLS. And SFTP is called Secure FTP, Secure File Transfer Protocol. And it's using port 22, the same that SSH would use port 22. And those are considered to be secure protocols, okay? So just know that whenever I'm connecting to an FTP server, just like I am now, I'm not using anything secure. Whenever I upload or download data to this server, it's going to be sent in the clear, like clear text or plain text. It's not going to be encrypted in any manner. If somebody were to use a tool like, let's say, Wireshark and be able to capture packets that I'm sending to this server, then they would actually see what those packets have inside of it, and possibly they'd be able to see the data that's inside of it. So you normally, you do not want to use an FTP server if you're just connecting through ports 20 and 21. All right. So what do I do when I'm connected to an FTP server like this? Well, now that I'm connected to it, what I can do is I can type in dir, and I can see that there's a folder in here called uploads, and it's actually showing it to me in the long listing format where I can actually see the permissions of this folder. All right. Let's say, for example, I'm over here in my Ubuntu machine and I want to be able to have files or folders available to users so that they can download files or folders to their machine. What I would do is I would go over here to my Ubuntu machine and create a file or a folder. So let's say, for example, I type in sudo nano file one, I'm sorry, file 3.txt. The nano text editor opens, and I'm going to type in here, hello world. My name is Professor Salazar, just like that. And I'm going to type in Control X, Y, and enter, which is the same as file and saving and closing it. If I do ls again, I see that not only do I have my uploads folder in there, but I also have my file3.txt file that I just created. If I go over to my Windows machine and I type in dir again, it shows me not only this uploads folder, but it also shows me the file that I just created. So this is how you can access files and folders from an FTP server. And if you want to download this file to your machine, you can also type in the command get followed by the file name, which is get file3.txt. And once I type in this command, it's going to download it to my C drive on my Windows machine. I just have to go look for it. And chances are it's going to be in my home directory. So let me go ahead and type in this command. And it looks like I just downloaded it to my home directory. Now, if I open up my file explorer and go to my home directory, for example, I'm going to try to go to my home directory here. I'm going to go to the C drive. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to go to the C drive in my users folder, in my names folder. And if I scroll all the way down, I see that I have a file3.txt. And if I double click on it, I see the file that I created on my Ubuntu machine. It says, hello world, my name is Professor Salazar. All right. Now, I can't really make changes to this file on the fly, meaning that the two servers are not actually connected to where if I make changes here, they're just automatically going to show up on my Ubuntu machine. But I have this file on my file explorer within my C drive on my Windows machine, right? This is the ability to just download a file to your Windows machine. Now, another thing that I can do is I can upload files to my Ubuntu machine. So let's say, for example, I'm over here in this PC under my C drive, and I go to users and I go to my name. Let's say, for example, I have file 1, 2, and 3 here. Let's say I make a file 4. Let's say I go here to new text document and I call this file4.txt. And if I open up file 4, there's nothing in there, right? I'm going to type in this. Please click on my YouTube channel and click the like and subscribe button. Okay, so I'm going to type in Control X, Y, or I'm sorry, this is not an Ubuntu machine, so I can't just do Control X, Y, and enter. But here I'm on my Windows machine, I can type in Control S to save it. And when I close out, there's a file4.txt. If I double click on it, it's going to open up what I just typed, right? So here I'm going to close it out. And I'm going to see if I can upload to my Ubuntu machine, because right now if I change directory to my uploads folder by typing in cd uploads, if I do ls, there's nothing there, right? But if I go over here to my Windows machine and I type in cd uploads, the directory successfully changed. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to upload my file4.txt file into that uploads folder that's sitting on my Ubuntu machine. So I'm going to type in put file4.txt. And when you type in the command put, it actually uploads files to the Ubuntu machine. When you type in the command get, like I did earlier, then get downloads files to my Windows machine. Okay? So we'll see how this works. I'm going to type in put file4.txt and hit enter. And it says file4 not found. So I may have to actually specify the location of this file4.txt. And if I type in put c:\users \my name /file4.txt, let's see if it actually works this time. It still says file not found. So I know that it's actually there. I just don't know, for example, if it's in the right location. So that's one thing that I'm going to check. I'm going to check to see is if this file4, I know what happened here. I actually named it file4.txt, but because it already has a text document extension, it added .txt.txt. So I'll have to go here and rename this. Let's see what I can do to rename it. I'm going to highlight it and rename and just get rid of the .txt at the end. And now file4.txt is there. And now all I have to do is type in put file4.txt. The transfer was complete. Now if I go over to my Ubuntu machine and type in ls, I see that I have a file4.txt. It's kind of like magic, really. Like, it's so cool to be working with this FTP server, because once I set it up, I can download files from that and I can upload files to that server. Now, if I'm over here on my Ubuntu machine and I want to be able to read the contents of that file4.txt, all I have to do is type in the command cat file4.txt. And it's going to say permission denied, right? So I'm going to type in sudo. So I'm going to type in sudo cat file4.txt. And it shows me, please click on my YouTube channel and click the like and subscribe button. You see that? So that's pretty cool. Like, I was able to download files from my Ubuntu machine to my Windows machine and open it and see the contents of it. And I was also able to upload files from my Windows machine to my Ubuntu machine. Then I accessed my Ubuntu machine and I was able to read the contents of that uploaded file that came from Windows. So I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to switch it over and I'm going to think, this is the time when you want to say to yourself, is it secure? It's not actually secure, because remember that FTP uses port 20 and 21 by default, which are both considered to be insecure protocols or insecure port numbers, right? FTP is a protocol in itself that is considered to be insecure. Also, I use the anonymous login to log in. And as you can see up here, the username that I supplied was anonymous, and there was no password that I supplied as well. Therefore, all I had to do was type in anonymous and click enter in order to log in successfully, not considered to be secure. So if I have this insecure server up and running, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to exit out of the Windows machine, and I'm going to open up my Kali machine and see if I can hack into it. So I'm going to type in the command bye. It's going to tell me 221 goodbye. I'm going to type in exit. It's going to exit out of my my PowerShell from Windows, and then I'm going to open up my Kali machine. So here's my Kali Linux running in the Windows subsystem for Linux. And I'm going to put this side by side so you can see. This is Kali right here. If I type in host name, you can actually see that I'm on my laptop surface, and I can type in some Kali commands here. Like, for example, I'm also going to do sudo apt update to update the machine. And I'm also going to see if there's any new packages that can be installed on here. If there are, I'll type in sudo apt upgrade. But now it just showed me all packages are up to date, and I don't need to run sudo apt upgrade in order to upgrade anything, because it looks like everything has been upgraded. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the Nmap tool, and I'm going to run a scan and see what ports are open on my Ubuntu machine. So I'm going to type in sudo nmap space -s capital V space -p for the port number. And I'm just going to scan from port 1 to, let's say, for example, 500 on this particular IP address, which is my Ubuntu's IP address, 172.21.219.132. And let's see what ports are open on that Ubuntu machine. And let's also see the service versions that it comes back with. So it came back with just one port number open, and it looks like it's port 21. Now I know for sure that I also have port 20 that's open, all right? But the thing is that port 21 is really interesting because it's using that VS-FTPD service, right? It's that version called VS-FTPD 3.0.5 version. Now, if you ever come across an older version of FTP, like 2.3 point something, then that's not considered to be secure. The version number will also tell you how secure your FTP server is. So the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find an exploit that will hack into, that will allow me to hack into the Ubuntu machine. So I'm going to open up a tool called Metasploit by typing in sudo msf console. The Metasploit framework console is opening. And there's Metasploit. And all I have to do is just search for something that's going to use the VS-FTPD service. So I'm going to type in search VS-FTPD. And I see that there are two exploits within Metasploit that I can use to try to hack into the FTP server. There's one called VS-FTPD 232 denial of service attack. And there's also a VS-FTPD 234 backdoor that I could set up that will allow me to gain access through this service. Now, I'm thinking that this is not going to work because notice the version number of this VS-FTPD service. It's version 2.3.4. These exploits will definitely work if you're running an old version of VS-FTPD. Since I'm running 3.0 point something, chances are this is not going to work. But you know what? I'm going to try it anyway. I'm going to type in use. Oops. My machine kind of froze for a little bit. Let me see if I can access it again. Okay, I have to wait for it to load. I'm going to type in use one, and then I'm going to type in show options. And what I'm doing here is I'm typing in show options so I can show the exploits options. If there's something that I can type into this exploit, I'll use it to try to gain access and set up a backdoor on that Ubuntu machine. Now, when you set up a backdoor on an Ubuntu machine, chances are the user's not actually even going to know that there's been a backdoor open. Backdoors are difficult to detect. It's not like you just know that the backdoor's been open. It's kind of like something that's actually hidden to the user. Like they don't know that you just opened up a backdoor. So let me do this. I'm showing the options, and now I see that there's no remote host that's set up in the settings. So if I want to type in a remote host, I'm going to type in the Ubuntu's IP address in the remote host settings. So I'm going to type in set our hosts to 172.21.219.132. So now the exploit is ready, and all I have to do to try to set up a backdoor is to type in the command exploit. And let's see if I gain access to this Ubuntu machine. And it says user 331, please specify the password, exploit completed, but no session was created. Do you see that? Even though that I had a insecure FTP server set up, I'm still not able to hack into it because it's running a newer version of the VSFTPD service, which is version 3.0.5. If this was an old version of VSFTPD, like 2.3.4, I would be able to use this exploit and hack into it, right? And by the way, this is not the only way to secure your FTP server. But it's just one way, just making sure that you have an updated version of it. If you have an old or outdated version, don't use it. The best thing to do is to run updates and see if a new update comes in, right? So I'm going to exit out of the Metasploit framework, and I'm going to run it again, but this time I'm going to use the ID of 0 and see if I can hack in by typing in this. I'm going to type in search for VSFTPD again, search VSFTPD. And you see under ID number 0, I have this denial of service. I don't actually think this is going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. Use 0, and then I'm going to type in show options. And then you see under the R host that nothing's there, right? So I'm going to type in set R hosts to 172.21.219.132. The IP address has been set, and all I have to do is type in exploit and see what happens. And you see how it didn't work? Auxiliary aborted due to failure, not vulnerable. The target is not vulnerable. That's pretty interesting also, because if I had been running an old version of VSFTPD, it would allow me to perform this denial of service attack. In a denial of service attack, all that's happening is that you're bringing that server down, or you're flooding it with so much traffic that it's just going to slow down to the point where you can't even use it anymore, right? The backdoor, I think, is a little more dangerous because if you set up a backdoor, you can start controlling that other machine by just issuing commands, right? So yeah, that one's a little bit more dangerous. What I'm going to do next is just exit out. Of Kali, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And that's how you can set up an FTP server using ports 20 and 21. And that's how you can access it from a Windows machine. You can use an FTP server to upload data or to download data to and from that server. All right, that's all I wanted to show you today. Thank you for watching the video, and I hope you click the like button. Thanks.